Yes. So yeah. So I think I'll just go over an overview of what we have covered in the previous sessions, right? So in the previous sessions, we talked about the first session was a general overview of what we can do during this pandemic and how can we practice, right? And the second session was mostly about compassion and how we should practice compassion in a step-by-step basis, and how to practice compassion during this pandemic situation. Yes, so good evening to everybody who has come for this third session. And during this third session, before we start the third session, I would like to start a small motivation before starting it, because as we are starting and dharma practice, dharma teaching, so motivation is really important at the first point of time. So first, what does motivation mean, right? Motivation during this time right now, we have to motivate ourselves by thinking, I'm going to listen to this teaching for the sake of the people who are affected by the pandemic, right? And try to help them in a way. Maybe may I benefit from this. So thinking like this with for the motivation, and also like thinking why the usual motivation things that we usually do, right? So that's the motivational part. So so today's topic, so I think I'll go with today's topic, right? So today's topic, after the motivation, now we'll start the topic. So today's topic is mostly about how to reduce anxiety in this current situation, right? So firstly, we must know that what is causing anxiety, right? What is causing anxiety for ourselves? For each person, the anxiety, what is causing the anxiety will be different, right? Of course, it is different from each and every person. Some persons may have anxiety due to fear of loss of something, and anxiety due to not everything being normal, and etc. and so on. So for each and every person it will be different, but I think the general population are having anxiety because of the situation that has arisen, and the fear of losing jobs and etc., right? So I think it's mostly that. So how to reduce anxiety in this situation? The step is actually, during this circuit breaker time, we have anxiety of many things, right? And so the general thinking that we could have by fear of getting COVID-19 and etc., like this, right? During this circuit breaker time, we feel anxiety because we are staying inside too much, right? Staying inside, and we have nothing much to do that will that takes our attention away from the usual talkings of the mind, right? Usual whatever we think when we are in a in a busy situation. When we are in a busy situation, and when there are many things that are wanting our attention, then of course we get engrossed in them, and we don't feel that much of anxiety. We don't have time to think that much of what we are thinking about right now. So when we talk about reducing anxiety, we can talk about two things, right? How thinking about karma reduces can help reduce anxiety, and how thinking about impermanence help reduce anxiety. So these are the two topics and maybe I will add on some of the other things later on, but these are the main two topics that we'll be going through about how we can help reduce by thinking like that. So firstly, we must when the anxiety arises in us, right, we must ask ourselves, like, from where is it arising, right? Usually when we have some sort of fear and anxiety and etc like that, the negative emotions like that, it generally arises by focusing too much on the outside, right? If it arises, if you ask the question to yourself, then you would be able to maybe pinpoint why is it arising, and maybe you can face it, right? Face the anxiety, why is it arising, and it will help you get in contact with your emotions, maybe, yeah, get in contact with your emotions, like help you reduce it, right? That's one way of doing it. So before we talk of anxiety, karma, and that's the thing. So firstly, when we talk about karma, right, I think a lot of you have asked the question about, is it due to collective karma that this is happening, and is it due to karma, right? So before talking about how karma can help reduce anxiety, we must know what karma is, right? What karma is, what's the meaning of karma. So firstly, I'll give when we talk about how can thinking about karma help reduce anxiety, firstly I will give a general overview of what karma is and what karma isn't, and after that how I will talk about how and why thinking about karma can help reduce anxiety, right? So that's the two things that I will talk about when I am going to talk about this karma helping, thinking about karma helping reduce anxiety. Yes. So the general overview about karma, right? What karma is and what karma isn't. When we talk about that, the word karma itself, right? The word karma itself has a lot of misinterpretation, and there is a lot of misinterpretation of what it means, right, and what it is. There are a lot of interpretations of that, right? Sometimes we also in the internet, like we use it as a joke. It is karma, right? It is karma that this is happening, and also like we use it like this. Sometimes when you talk about karma, we think of it as a superstitious, what do we call, superstitious thinking? Yeah, superstitious word, right? Something that is only related to religion, right? Not something that is beyond, let's say, beyond a religion, like a type of reality, right? When we talk about karma, it feels as if we are talking about superstitious, something that is not superstitious. Yeah. So that's one of the problems that we have when we think about karma, right? Like also I think many of us think of karma as a destiny or fate, right? Many of us think like that, like something that is fixed, that it must happen whether or not something arises, right? But Buddhist interpretation of karma is a little bit different, right? And Buddhist interpretation of karma is different. So also, like, sometimes we are in denial of karma, right? We are in denial of karma, like, how can something like this happen due to karma? How can something like this due to karma? It is just something that that's happened. It is not due to karma. I think all of this what do we call, misinformation, or all of this, like thinking may be coming because of thinking of karma and destiny or fate as same thing, right? So these are the like general misinterpretations or misinformations about karma that there is there. So there are like interpretations of karma that it is due to the divine hand that is controlling us, that it happens like that, right? But in the Buddhist point of view of karma, it is not by a divine hand, right? It is karma, simply put, the literal translation of karma. Karma, of course, is a Sanskrit word, and the literal translation means action, right? Literal translation means action. So whether you accept that there is karma or not, right? Whether you accept like whether karma is a superstitious word, and whether there is no relevance to the modern thinking, modern way of thinking, right? Whether you think like that, you must accept that your action will have an reaction to it, right? Your action will something you do will have a reaction and a repercussion. Sorry, my tongue is getting twisted, like I'm creating this problem for myself. Yes, you will have repercussions to your actions, right? That we must accept, right? Like is something like that. If you throw a ball really hard at the wall, and if it hits you, then that is a effect of your action, right? It hits you, effect of your action. In a way, simply put, karma means action. And for an whether you accept karma or not, you must accept that for your action there is a reaction to it, right? So as long as you accept that, whether you like the word karma or whether you think the word karma is superstitious or not, you are in a way accepting that karma is there, right? The meaning of karma, right? So that's that. So action. So karma means action. So whatever we do is an action, right? Whether it be bad, whether it be good, or whether it be none of the both, right? Something that is just like drinking a sip of water, like that is not neither good neither good karma or not a bad karma, of course. So therefore whatever actions is upon our own hand, right? Whatever action we do is upon ourselves, like how we what we do, how will it affect us? It is upon ourselves. So that's why thinking about karma is really important in a from a Buddhist point of view, and it is a reality of the world, right? It is a reality of a world that certain actions of a community, certain actions of a society, certain actions that we do together as a human being affects the environment. How the actions of having too much factories, right? Having too much factories, of course, having too much factories and having too much chemical waste and so on, like how it affects our environment, how it affects our what do you call, earth, how it affects our earth. This type of actions that we do together as a human being or an individual, it will come back to affect us. So basically karma is that, right? So yes, so in a way karmic, yes, sorry, I think my, yes. So in a way what Buddhist theory of karma suggests is that we are responsible for whatever effects are going to affect us, right? And we are responsible for our own condition in the world, and our actions will determine our future, or our actions will determine what we become, right? So karma is something like that. It is not destiny, that something that is fixed, right? If you do some type of karma, then the pacification of karma is also upon your own hand. It is not something that is controlled by others. It is something that is that you have the sole responsibility, right? Either as a community, either as a human being, or either as an individual, right? So that's the thing. So in a way, it makes us think the karmic theory and the karmic way of thinking, way of thinking, the karmic theory, right? I just use the word theory. Karmic theory suggests us that we are responsible for our things, and we can become the persons that we want to become, right? We can become how we want our futures to be. So karma, in a way, simply put, karma is like that, right? Also, maybe people will use it like this. People may use it like this. Oh, I'm lazy, right? I'm lazy. I'm lonely, and I'm feeling anxiety. This is karma. This is karma. It is like this. It cannot change, right? That, in a way, I think is mistaken thinking, right? I think it's a mistaken thinking, right? It's not karma that you are feeling that way. Of course, the situation may arise, but how you think, in a way, of course, there is a thing. There may be some neurological, like if we talk from a science point of view, there may be some neurological chemicals that release that will cause you to feel that way, right? Feel that way, but I think it's a thinking process that is happening, that is affecting us, feel anxiety and fear and so on. So it's not like if we think about karma, it's not like if you are stuck in some type of situation, I'm stuck in this situation, this is my karma, I must accept it. It's not that, right? Of course, karma has purifications and how to remedy our actions and so on. So that's what generally, simply put, now I'll just come to the conclusion of, simply put, the karmic theory suggests that we are responsible for our own action. Karma simply means action, and we are responsible for our own action as a whole human, or how we act on some things, right? So simply put, that's that. So of course we can change our actions, right? In a situation, we can change how we react to it, right? Even if the effect of the karma, effect of your action has already arisen, already been given fruition, already come into fruition, right? Already come into fruition. Yes. Is the connection coming nicely? Okay. So I think, yes, I think because there was a comment saying that connection is a little bit okay. So that's the thing. Oh, where was I? I got distracted. Sorry. Okay. So the karmic connection, right? What we do as an individual, that affects us. So that's the thing. So how and why thinking about karma can help reduce anxiety? Anxiety usually comes from thinking about, I don't have power over this, right? I don't have any power over this. I don't, something that is beyond your control, something that is beyond your control, that may be creating anxiety for you, and maybe something fear of loss, right? Fear of loss. So thinking about karma helps reduce anxiety, because it is the truth about how this conventional world works, right? It is the truth about conventional world works. So generally, when we know why something is happening, and when we know that something is happening because of this, right, then we are less afraid, right? We feel less afraid. Like suppose I'll give you an example. If you are in a dark room, right, I'll give you a situation and an example. Example situation, yeah. So whatever. So the if you are in a dark room and you don't know what's in the dark room, right, where you can't see anything, you suddenly hear somebody, actually it's a clap, but if you hear somebody clap, right, if you hear somebody clap, of course you feel fear, what's happening inside this, right? Or even if it's just a rope lying there and your feet touches it, if you can't see it, you don't know what it is, you will feel fear, right? You will feel fear. You will get, maybe you may get anxiety at thinking that maybe there is a snake, right? Maybe you will get an anxiety, but mostly fear will arise, right? So that is because you don't know that that is a rope or somebody is going to clap. In the other situation, right, in the other situation, even somebody told you that they are going to clap in the dark room, and somebody told you that there is a rope at this point, this place, and like that, right? So oh, I'm sorry if there is a internet connection problem, right? I'm sorry if there is an internet connection problem, because like I think my internet connection is going down. I can see, I don't know how that. Yes, so that's the thing. If you, in that situation, if you know like somebody is going to clap, or there is a, what do we call, rope lying there, then you won't be that afraid if somebody claps, or your feet or so on touches the rope, right? So thinking of karma makes us feel, thinking of karma, I can't get the word for it. Thinking of karma makes us realize that karma is the way that how this conventional world works, right? And if we know how this conventional world works, then we feel a little bit less fear about how it affects us, how it's causing us anxiety, right? So yes, thinking of karma gives us more confidence, right? This is happening because of our actions. Now how can we turn these actions into a positive one, so that the effects will be less, right? So that's the way that we can think about it. Yes, that's the way that we can think about it. 1 minute, I think there's a problem with my connection. Yes, so that's the way that we can think about it. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by the connection. Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. So when we think about karma, we can think about two things, right? Collective karma and individual karma, right? When we think about collective karma, yeah, collective karma is really a hard way to think about it, right? Hard way to think about it. So when you think about collective karma, it may feel, what did I do, right? What did I do for this COVID? I didn't do anything, right? I didn't do anything. Like what did I do for this COVID-19 situation to arise, right? Maybe you did nothing in this life. Maybe there is a connection in the previous life, if you are Buddhist and accept that there is a previous life, right, and so on. But there is this term called the butterfly effect. Maybe you have heard about it, right? The butterfly effect, like how a flapping of a butterfly's wings in a certain place at a certain time affects how a tornado or some type of weather is going to be in a certain place that is like 1,000 kilometers away, right? So in that way of thinking, like the butterfly effect is something scientific. Yeah, so if we think like that, then of course you may have not done something knowingly to for this COVID-19 situation to arise, right? But it may be something that you may have done indirectly, right? Indirectly, not directly. So when we think about collective karma, it can help us reduce anxiety, because like this, when we feel that this situation not has arisen because of our actions and we must improve it, and that it is not just one individual suffering from it, right? If we feel like we are in this together, we are in this situation together, we are in this pandemic together, we are suffering together, then I think it will help us. It will help us reduce the anxiety. Of course, we must focus more on the positive. Is it coming? Because there is this logo going on my. Yes. Oh, it's back. I'm so sorry for the connection issues, right? This connection is giving me a maybe a karmic effect. Yes, I'm so sorry for the technical issues, right? So yes, slightly disrupted. Yeah, because it was showing the what do we call the do we call it the logo of death? Yeah, something like that, right? So okay, so when we think about, I think everything that was recorded, maybe when we think about collective karma, right, when we think about collective karma, we can think about the butterfly effect and how it is affecting indirectly, right? Even though we may not be contributing straight, we may be contributing back, right? Okay. Okay, but it is, the internet connection is giving me anxiety problems. Yes. Yes, okay, thank you. So that's the thing. And also when we think about collective karma, we must think about how we can improve, right, improve our actions so that this type of situations doesn't arise, right, like that. So thinking about collective karma in a way, like thinking we are in this together and we will go through this together, will help us. Not only that, it will be like that. So now we can talk about the individual karma, right? When we talk about the individual karma, it is something that you have done, right? It is something that you have done, and we shouldn't be fearful. We shouldn't be fearful about this situation. Of course, we must be alert, we must be careful, but we must not be fearful and full of anxiety, right? So there is a what do we call, there is a stanza, there is a that in the way of the Bodhisattva, right? Yes, there is that, I think verse 19 of patience, right? When sorrows fall upon the wise, their mind should be serene and undisturbed. For in their war against defiled emotion, many are hardships as in every battle, and thinking scorn of every pain and vanquishing such foes as hatred. These are the exploits of victorious warriors. The rest is slaying what is dead already. I don't know whether this reading this sentence, it is hard, how they worded it, right? But generally what it means is this COVID-19 situation, of course it is a big pandemic, but we have this, what do we call, when we do individual karma, we shouldn't be when we think about individual, we shouldn't be fearful, right? Because in this situation, of course it is a big situation, but we have more bigger problems inside, which is continuing, even though that is COVID-19 is an outside created stress, but we have more problems inside, mental stress, right? Mental stress. And we must think like, where is this mental stress coming from? For those who are more practiced and all, they can what do we call, they can, if such a big situation arise, outside situation, they can what do we call, they can be more calm, and during this situation they can be more controlled about their emotions, right? Usually what happens is, because we are not in so much control of our emotions, it gives us many different type of thinkings. We are not in control of our process of thought, right? So we are not differentiating, we are not, what do we call, quality control, we are not doing quality control of our thinking, right? So that's the thing. So when we think about individual karma, we shouldn't be fearful, right? Because if we don't have the cause of, it's the same saying as, if you can change it, why be fearful of it? Why be sad about it? Why if you cannot do anything about it, why be sad about it, right? If it is, we shouldn't be fearful, because if we don't have the cause, we don't have the karma to get affected, then we won't get affected, right? But it is equally important to do social distancing and etc. like that, because we don't know, we have this problem of not knowing whether we have the cause or not, right? Whether we have the cause or not, we must not, even though we do not have the cause, we must be careful doing this. But because we don't know whether we have the cause or not, and if we let the cause, if we have the cause and let the conditions meet with the cause, then you may get sick and infected, right? So it is important to do that, not only think about if I don't have the cause and I won't get affected and going outside and like that, right? So if we have the cause, of course there is a way that we can do, right? We can not let the cause and condition meet, right? In the previous session, maybe I was using the word contributory cause. We can do by not letting the cause and condition meet, and even if we have the cause, we can remedy it by purify it by doing the 37 Buddha practices and the 4 powers, right? But if we think this is my destiny and this is our fate, we are really mistaken on that, right? Karma doesn't mean fate, karma doesn't mean destiny, right? It is something that is that. Yeah. So yes, that's the things about karma that we can think about. If we think about karma as a reality of this, how this world works, and this is happening due to karma, then it will help us reduce our anxiety. So next topic is impermanence, right? So yes, I will talk about impermanence. Yes, and I will talk about impermanence and how practicing impermanence will help us reduce anxiety during this pandemic, right? So firstly, again, we must ask where this anxiety is coming from, right? It is coming from overthinking about the past, overthinking about the future, and right, and overthinking about thinking like this COVID-19 situation, right? This COVID-19 yes, so somebody is saying that I'm wearing this in the wrong way, but I would like to, I think this is due to the selfie. I am wearing the robe in a reversed way. I think it is due to the selfie camera that it's happening like that, right? It is the Facebook has something like the mirror mode. Yeah, I think it is it is the thing, right? It is the mirror that is causing that. Yes, so that's the thing. Yeah, I also thought why I'm wearing this, but I know that I'm not wearing it wrong. Yes, it is due to the mirror of the mirroring of something in the Facebook. Yeah, so when we talk about impermanence, this, it is giving us anxiety because this COVID-19 situation is showing us the real power of impermanence, right? We were going about our daily jobs, we were going about our daily lives, like how everything normally goes on, right? And we are thinking, oh, this job I will be doing for like, we have made plans for 30 years, maybe 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, whatever, right? Whatever years I'll be doing work from this to this, and maybe I'll get a promotion and something like that. When this pandemic struck, right? When this pandemic struck, it really we were doing shopping, and maybe we are going to the malls, right? And we are going to the malls, shopping and playing, socializing with people, etc. And when that happened, this pandemic struck, it yeah, no promotion during COVID-19, so that is the anxiety causing thing. Yes, so what this COVID-19 has done, what we are thinking about as a permanent, right? This will go on for like 10 years and maybe I'll retire. What we have thought, we have the problem of thinking ourselves as permanent and thinking the normal life as a permanent, right? Permanent. So when this COVID-19 struck, it created a situation where it was a drastic change, sudden drastic change in your lifestyle and sudden drastic change in your normal life. So if you usually were practicing impermanence instead of just saying impermanence, right, then I think you won't be that much affected. Even if this pandemic, of course, seeing the people die, you may feel sad and etc. like that, but you won't be affected of anxiety by that much. I think like that, right? So also, right, we were overthinking. Yeah, that's the thing. We were overthinking, and mostly future. We are planning about this much, and it's put a sudden halt to our plans and so on, right? Actually, I had a plan to go to my home place in Nepal, and I had to cancel it, right? I had to cancel it, so I had to stay here. So like that's the thing. So when we think about impermanence, if we usually put it in practice in our usual life, it won't affect us that much, right? This situation will affect us in a small way, but like really, like anxiety causing, it won't be it won't affect us like that. So that's the thing. Also the thing is, right now thinking about impermanence will really help us, right? Like because when we think about, when we are in a happy time, when we are enjoying our life, right, when we are enjoying our life, and when we are focusing, when we are enjoying our life, and when we are like with our friends and socializing, like time just flies by, right? Time just flies by. Like you won't even know how 1 hour, how 2 day, maybe even 2 days, right? Maybe even 2 days, maybe even like how an this went by, how an year went by when we are happy, right? But when we are stuck with the situation, and when we are at the time of suffering, it feels like as if it's going to last a lifetime, right? Happy time just flies by, and the suffering time just feels elongated, even though the 24 hours, months, and the years, they are the same timing. We just, our mental, that just puts an extra, like a permanent situation, permanent, like it is something permanent, and it elongates it, right? When we are suffering, when we are happy, it just goes like we don't even know how time has passed. So when we think about permanence in this situation, it will really help us, right? We are having anxiety and fear because we are thinking this will last so long, this will go on forever. And when we think of impermanence, okay, so if everything is impermanent and everything has a cause and condition to meet, then this pandemic is also impermanent, right? It won't be permanent, right? So whether there will be a medicine or vaccines or so on coming out, it won't be like that, right? This will also pass away. Of course, you may heard about the Black Death pandemic, and the Spanish flu, right? The influenza flu that occurred during 19 something, right? So all of this pandemics has occurred previously also, and it has come to pass, right? It has come to pass. Of course, a lot of lives were lost, and so on, but it has passed. The time has passed, and we were living a normal life. Now this fight has come, and we must not think it is being permanent, right? And we must think like it being a impermanent phenomenon that will come to pass. Of course, how long it will last, right? Like a year, or maybe 2-3 months, or how much ever it lasts, may depend upon the cause and conditions, but it will come to pass. It is not something that is permanent. So when we think about this, right, when we think about this, it will help us get rid of the anxiety, right? Yes, so during this thing, we will be if we practice about impermanence, it will really help us reduce the anxiety. And also, like when we think about it, right, for a same person, not a same person, for two different persons, and one is a little bit practiced in the way of thinking, right, of impermanence and etc. like that. If one person and the other person are put in the same situation, right, if they are put in the same situation, then why is the reason that other person is not feeling that much of anxiety and the other person is feeling too much of anxiety, even though it is the same situation, right? I think it may be because of the thinking process that has gone on in your mind, right? Like usually when we suffer, right, when we suffer, we tend to what do we call, elevate the situation a lot. So it creates us mental stress, it creates some type of burden upon ourselves, and pushes us down, right, pushes us down, and we feel like squeezed, and we feel like it's not going to end. So I think it is because of the thinking process, right? It is because of the thinking process, that practices that you have put in your lifetime, right? Even though you have not practiced previously, this is an opportunity, right? So there is also this phrase and a quote of the way of Bodhisattva, right? I think in the patience part, there is this 21 stanza. So it's this: suffering also has its worth. Through sorrow, pride is driven out, and pity felt for those who wander in the samsara, and evil is avoided, goodness seems delightful, right? So this stanza, this quote from the way of Bodhisattva is really encouraging, right? When we suffer, right, if we don't suffer, I'll give you the literal meaning, like stanzas are worded so difficultly that it is really hard to read them, right? So I'll just give you the meaning. For our want to be liberated from this samsara, the want to be liberated from this samsara, right, it arises from suffering, right? If you don't suffer, if you have a really good life, and like, you won't think of liberation, you won't think of what do we call, liberating yourself from this samsara, right? But right now the situation is causing a lot of suffering, so this is an opportunity to arise the want of liberation for oneself, for yourself, right? So when we think of the pandemic, think of this as an opportunity, right? Not the opportunity as in taking advantage of those in need, but an opportunity to improve yourself. So this stanza is really, really, what do you call, amazing, I feel, right? How to turn, of course there is in the Lama Chopa text also, like how to turn the obstacle into a path, into the path, right? So during this pandemic, we can use this time to practice compassion, to practice impermanence, and to practice to reflect on the karmic workings, right? So these are the things that we should think about, right? We should think about. So instead of focusing our mind too much on the unknown, like too much on the negative side, if we focus more on this type of things, it will, I'm pretty sure, I think 99% sure, I'll just leave out the 1%. I'm 99% sure that it will help relieve the suffering. So that's the thing. Yeah, so impermanence, right? So we must again ask the question, like, why is this thinking that this is going to be permanent arise, right? One of the thinking of the self being permanent, firstly the self being permanent, then what we do being permanent, then outer things being permanent, all of this arises from the self-grasping mind, right? So we must think about what is the self-grasping mind and how it is affecting us, right? How it is affecting us. And the self-grasping mind, when we think about ourselves, it usually does is we think of the self as a permanent being, right? And self as not being dependent on others, right? Like it is an independent being, yeah, some type of intelligent being, we have that type of thinking. So when that independent thinking arises, that causes us to think that the self is permanent, and that causes us to think what we are doing is permanent, right? So there is a relationship. The main, even the karma, right? Even the karma, the last, what makes us do bad karma and what makes us not do good karma is because of the self-grasping mind. So at the last, it is important to think about the self-grasping mind and how it is creating problems for others and yourself, right? Like the self-grasping mind, because there is a self-grasping mind, you want happiness, right? Because it is focused too much on ourselves, that it is creating all these types of problems, right? So of course you can use this time to reflect on how this self-grasping mind is working. There is a stanza in Lama Chopa text, right? Thinking about yourself is the root of all suffering, right? And thinking about others, thinking about others and wanting to help others is the root of all bliss, the root of all happiness, right? So source of happiness, right? That is the thing. So if you focus too much on yourself, it will create anxiety, it will create fear, it will create restlessness, it will create loneliness, right? And loneliness, it will create feeling bored, right? Like yeah. So I think it is important that you should also reflect on what this self-grasping mind is. I hope that this all are, whatever I have talked has been beneficial to you all. And so I'll just give a summary of what I have talked, right? Summary of what I have talked. So the summary in general, firstly, we must ask ourselves, where is this anxiety coming from, right? So because today's topic is mostly about anxiety, and today I just talked about the two remedies, the karma and the impermanence, right? But there are also a lot of other, being content with what you have, right? A lot of other remedies, like being content, being satisfied, like because we are not satisfied with what we have and what is happening right now, we want more, we want normalcy. That's also causing us stress and anxiety, right? So firstly, today we just talked about karma and impermanence. So when we talked about karma, how to think about it? Think about karma as a reality, as an action, right? As an action that is creating this situation. So when we know that it is a karma that is creating this situation in this conventional world, then we won't feel that fearful of what is happening right now. And when we talked about anxiety, we talked about collective and individual karma. And when we talked about the individual karma, if you don't have the cause for you to get infected, you won't get infected. But it is equally important for you to do social distancing and so on, right? And when we talked about impermanence, I talked about how thinking of everything as being permanent is causing us this anxiety or stress, right? And when we are happy, time just seems to fly by, and when we are in a suffering stage, time just stands still and never ending time. At this point of time, it is really important to think about impermanence. It will help you think, if you feel like this is going to last long and that is creating stress for you, it will help you relieve of that stress, right? So I think that's what I have talked about also, like, yeah, I think I have also talked about this in general. If we think of this situation as an opportunity to improve yourself, not just spiritually, mentally, physically, whatever, right? So it will be less stressful, right? So I think I'll be taking questions for 15 to 20 minutes, I think. Yeah, that's the summary, right? I hope it benefited you all. So now I think I'll just go through some of the questions, right? So is there a question around here? Yes, I'm just going to yes, Practitioner Chen, please give us example of collective. Okay, so firstly I would like to tell you, karma is a complicated matter, firstly, right? If simply put, we are just putting it simply like it is an action and something you do affecting, creating a cause for you and for the effect to arise. But actually, yes, hello, I'm so sorry, like the app crashed, right? So actually there were some questions, and that I think I can remember some of the I'm so sorry, because like the app crashed, literally went out of the app and closed the live session itself. I don't know how it happened. Today it is really an anxiety, because I'm talking about an anxiety. I think it is really trying to create an anxiety for me. Right? So I think there was a question about collective karma, right? There was a question about collective karma. So if you would like, you can ask your questions here. I'm so sorry that I missed all of the questions that were in the previous what do you call previous Facebook live, right? So one of the question was, what is collective karma? So when we talk about collective karma, it isn't a complicated thing, right? It isn't a complicated thing. It is something that when we talk about karma, and when we talk so in depth about karma, it gets really, really complicated, right? There are a lot of texts about in the Abhidharma text, right? Suppose in the Abhidharma text there are a lot of subsets. There are a lot of subsets of karma, and there are a lot of examples of karma, right? And yes, there are a lot of examples of karma, and small doings, right? This karma is affecting this. We can know, but to go through specifically in detail about what, how, when it works, right? It is really difficult, as it is written in the text that only Buddha knows how it works, right? Specifically. So collective karma, as practitioner Cheng was asking, what is collective karma example, right? Firstly, I wanted to say that the collective karma is an accumulation of actions of all the living beings in this world, right? It doesn't have to be all the living beings in your community, in your community, in your society, right? It is an action, right? That has created this situation, right? Of course, like sometimes we may think like our actions, how human beings actions, right? Human beings actions, polluting the world and etc. is affecting us, right? So that is the thing that is a collective karma, right? So there was that, And Lillian had asked, if I remember correctly, collective karma. That's an example of collective karma. I hope that made it clear on an example. Like it is like we are working towards something together, right? Collective karma, right? Of course, I can't give you the specific details, because even I don't know how this collective karma works, right? But there is this thing that it works, because like we know how it is this, right? Yes. So now in the previous question, Lillian Lau, right? She had asked about elaborate on four powers. Yes, the four powers. Oh, so the I don't know the English terms, right? So the four powers are basically the, let me check for the terminology, and terminology, right? The terminology, I think the four powers, if you can give me the terminology, of course. Okay, so I'll just give you a visualization practice of the four powers, right? So when we talk about the four powers, it is yes, we can apply the four powers, right? The four powers is basically thinking as all of the bodhisattvas and the Buddhas in front of you. That is the one power. And thinking that this type of action I won't. The second power is this type of action I won't do it again, right? And this type of action I won't do, having a not a guilt, but having a regret of what you have done, and promising not to do again, right? And wanting to not do it again, right? Promise and want not to do again. And the last one should be, the terminology has come: regret, reliance, remedial action. So promise and the reliance is on the bodhisattvas and the Buddhas that have we have visualized in front of us. And regret, right? Regret, power of reliance, power of regret, remedy, action, and promise. Yes. So when we think power of reliance is thinking of the bodhisattvas in front of us, right? Visualizing them. And the power of regret is wanting not to do the action again. Something that if you have done something bad, and having the regret that you won't do it again, right? And nextly, promise is almost same as the regret, but it is like regret plus promise. Regret doesn't mean that you are making a promise, so later on you are doing a promise that you won't do this again. And remedy, of course, power of remedy is you doing good things, good meritable things, right? These are the things that these are the four powers. If you go from a visualization process, you could think of the bodhisattvas being in front of them and talking to them as saying, I have done this deed, and this is due to my ignorance that I have done this, and have a regret of doing that, and putting them as a witness, promise that you won't do this again, and promise them that you will do good merit, right? And do good merit. So this is how you can go on by the four powers, right? So that's the thing. So the second questions was, how can one find the deep root of fear when you are facing one at the very moment? Yes. So when you are facing one, of course, it is, Matthew Tan had asked this question. Of course, it is hard to just analyze at that point of time, right? But if you usually do it, then you can, right? You fear. Why are you fearing? When some type of fear arises, you must ask, why are you fearing, right? Why is this fear arising? Then if we dissect it, right, it may be due to the self-grasping, it may be due to thinking something, fear of loss, right, of losing something. So if we think of it as a impermanent situation, then maybe that will help you, right? But the way to find the root is mostly to be analytical about it, right? When you are facing the fear, and think, why is this fear arising? Why am I thinking like that? Why am I fearing, right? So that's the answer for Matthew. And Chiling Chong, in some texts it's mentioned that karma cannot be eliminated. So how does okay, so what does karma, of course there are a little bit conflicting texts, right? It's not conflicted in a way. I think I mentioned it previously in the teaching that when you do the purification practice, like 37 practice and Vajrasrava practice and the 4 powers and so on, you won't have to face the full negative effects of the karma. It is purifying, right? You may just be able to go without facing the full effect of the karma. You may have to feel a small effect, like having a headache or cold or just a small type of pain. That's what it cannot fully eliminate. The main effect that the karma will arise, karma is creating, that can be eliminated, but the full effect, right, like a small type of, it lessens the effect of the karma. So the purification is like that. It's not like it can be fully eliminated, but there will be small types of what we call effects that will arise if you do the purification practice. If you don't do the purification practice, then you will have to experience the full effects of the karma, right? So that's the answer. Is being considered purification. Okay, so this question is an interesting. King Ang, dear Rinpoche, when we accept the negative karmic result as purification and should try to change it? Okay, so of course we should try to change it. It's not like this, okay? When we experience an effect of a negative karma and we just think, oh, it's a purification process, and do nothing about it. Suppose you are dying, and if you have a surgery, you won't die, right? So it doesn't make sense, right? It's not like you just accept it as an effect of a negative karma being purified and let me die, I won't do the surgery, right? So if you practice, and as long as you are being affected by the karma, you are experiencing, you can think of as a purification progress of the negative karma, and think that due to this negative karma feeling that I won't experience, may the other living beings not experience it. But of course you should go for the surgery and try to recover from it, right? It's not that. The precious human rebirth is more important than that, right? So if you just suffer in a way, if you are not so practiced, it will create a mental stress on you, right? Of course we can, during the suffering period, to turn the negative into path, then you must do it. Otherwise, if there is a misinterpretation of that, then you may start to hurt yourself thinking it is a way of purifying negative karma. That is not the way. Yes, that's the answer for Kim Ang and Lilian Lau. Okay, so I think this is the all right in this. Kim Ang, yes, I think this is all the things that I think these are all the questions. I'm so sorry, like for the application got crashed, and application crashed, and we were not able to go uninterrupted. I think because we were talking about anxiety and that maybe it's my karmic effect that I have to experience anxiety when I'm talking about anxiety, how to reduce anxiety. So with that, I will stop here. And as a last dedication from this teaching, whatever merit that we have created, may all the beings who are affected by the COVID-19 be relieved, and may this pandemic situation really end, right? Yes, so that's the dedication part. I hope you do your dedications yourselves. So that's the thing. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me. Bye.